What's going on, everyone? Today we're continuing on the VADER build. We're hopefully getting to the very end here, although on the Oda one we obviously put it together, tested it, then did the finishing stuff. This one I'm kind of trying to do all the finishing stuff, because this one would be much more difficult to try and take apart, so we got to just try to get it right the first time. So we've got our pump reservoir here. Need to put some backing on here and get that installed. Just put a little electrical tape over the shielding here, because that's what the reservoir sits on, and I don't really want that to be rubbing on the metal, so it's just a little something there to protect it. We've got our extenders here in the mail. That goes in the top of the reservoir to stick this out the top. Now I can either not cut anything out of here and just have that sit below the vent, and then you have to remove the top vent to fill and drain the system. That would make it cleaner here. Or I can have the extra extension so it actually sticks out far enough so that the plug is just almost flush, a little bit above this vent, and we'll have to cut a hole here. I'm worried though that it's as close to this as possible, so I'll have to cut really close here to make that one work. But we'll get there. We still got a little wiring to do. I've got to mix this whole mess of 3 pins together. A little complicated, but I'll explain it. This is our 12 volt. There's only one, but we have 1 thing to power here, 2 to power here, and 3 we need to power our LEDs on the back. And I'm just going to put all that on 3 pins. This is very confusing. I'll explain it once it's all together. It's hard to explain it now, but this will plug into the 3 pin there, and then everything else will kind of plug in so that we have 3 more connectors available to plug all that stuff in separately. So you want the pump to always be separate so that you can test everything without running the pump dry until you add fluid. I did put a little black paint over this blue LED. I'm hoping that'll just kind of block that out. That's just a blue indicator LED on the fan splitter there. And then we need to splice this into another 3 pin that will plug into this 5 volt splitter there for our temperature display. We need to break these little end pins off and smooth out these little pegs here on the side so that it sits flush in our panel here, like this test one that I use. So you just have to smooth out those tabs so it can sit flush in there. Let's see, I think that's just about it. I'm going to put a little hot glue on this, even though this is very snug fit. This radiator's not going to budge, but just to make sure, we're going to put a little bit of glue around the outside, the hot glue. Kind of like we did on the eyeball one, but that one, the radiator was sitting kind of loose in there and the glue was mostly holding it. This is already in place, but I just want to add glue on that. We've got our flow meter in the mail. Finally, this was the last thing I was waiting on with those extenders. So I got this all installed. It's not actually touching the water block. There's a gap there, so it's not just resting on top of that. You should still be able to see the water blocks pretty well, like the fluid going through them. I guess I could put another LED plug on here and wire another UV one to light all the red in there, but the one in the reservoir is literally going to be like right here, so I'm hoping that'll be enough. I don't want too much purple going on anyway, just like the red. So yeah, without further ado, let me get working on this wiring harness. I need to get that installed, and I need to get this going as well. The previous videos I said I was putting the plug in here, but I forgot this red one here doesn't have, I can't remove this flat sensor. I guess I could kind of splice a plug sensor in, but we're just going to put this under the GPU because that's the same thing that's going on here, and we can get very accurate readings. Between the two, they both will have a flat sensor under the GPU. So, alright, let me get that wiring going, and then we can put this inside and start doing the LED wiring, because I need to do that before I can put the shell on. So, Alright, so I got my wiring done. I used this was a splitter for an old 360 to connect the fan to 12 volts. So this is what we'll plug into our 12 volt connector, and then as you can see it splits off, so we can plug the pump in here. And then on this one we've got our LEDs for the back side of the console connected to this 3-pin. So we'll have to connect that stuff, run the wire, then plug it into the other side. And last thing I had to do was just cut the 4-pin off of this temperature sensor and connect it to this 3-pin so we can plug that into that board there. And then I decided ultimately we'll just put this fan onto the 5-volt splitter as well. Not that it's noisy at all at 12 volts, but this one is supposed to be the quiet one, so we'll just leave all the fans at 5 volts. Now what's funny is, even though this one's water cooled, it has the same amount of fans as this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So pretty interesting. But anyway, now that that's all done, we can technically do the final assembly. However, first things first, I think it's going to be smart to not hook anything up on this and just plug the pump into my power supply over here and just fill this up with distilled water so we can check for leaks or anything without having to plug in the motherboard and then freak out and have to unplug it real quick. So that's what we're going to do right now, and probably end the video with hopefully nothing leaking and just putting the final assembly together. I got the fan mounted to the side panel, shortened the cable a little bit so there's not a bunch of extra that I gotta hide. Already got a mess over here, but we do have the temperature display in. All we gotta do is slide it sideways through this hole as we're putting this on, and then you can press it in through the top. And last thing I gotta do, we've got our other 3-pin connector sitting over here to plug our LEDs into. I'm going to plug that in, let that stuff dangle to the side. We're going to install the side panel, temperature display, plug the fan in so that everything's ready to go. We'll put the screws in the side panel, at least a couple of them. Obviously the middle ones aren't going to be used because the fan's in the way. And then we'll be able to flip the whole thing over and start mounting our LEDs on, and then we can finally put the rest of the shell together. Got both side panels on with the LEDs in the back. I'm going to leave the top vent and faceplate off while I fill it up because I still have to cut the top of the vent there for this. We're going to go ahead and fill it up, and then we will test it out in the next video with the Yoda build.